All right, let's jump right in. If you're prepping for the IBA exam, you know the vocabulary can be pretty tough. So today, we're going to make things a whole lot easier. We're going to tackle 25 key words, but we're not just going to memorize them. Nope. We're going to group them in a way that actually makes sense, so you'll really understand them and they'll stick in your brain. Let's get to it.
Trying to cram words one by one it's exhausting. And you know what? It just doesn't work that well. That's why we're breaking these 25 important words into 5 simple logical groups. See, when you learn them this way, you see how they connect, and that helps everything lock into place in your memory. So you ready?
Okay, first up, let's look at words that describe a person's character or qualities. Thinking about words in terms of what's good and what's bad is a really powerful way to build up your vocabulary fast.
So let's look at our first set of words here. We're going to compare 2 really positive qualities, insight and flair, with 2 very negative ones, vile and temerity. Putting them side by side like this, the good versus the bad, really makes the meanings pop and helps them stick.
Okay, so first we have insight. Insight is that deep, clear understanding you get about something. A great leader, for example, has insight into what really motivates their team. Or maybe a detective has a sudden flash of insight that cracks the case wide open. And then there's flair, which is a special talent or a really stylish way of doing things. You could say a chef has a flair for creating amazing dishes, or that someone dresses with a lot of flair. Both are fantastic qualities to have.
Now for the flip side, the negative qualities. Our first word is vile. That's V-I-L-E. Vile means something is just extremely unpleasant or even evil. Lying to your best friend? That's a vile thing to do. The second word is temerity. T-E-M-E-R-I-T-Y. Temerity is when someone is bold but in a really foolish, reckless way. For instance, the student had the temerity to argue with the professor after being caught cheating. It's like having all the confidence in the world but none of the wisdom to back it up.
All right, let's keep it moving. Our second group of words is all about action and energy. We're going to look at words that describe how things move, from super fast to painfully slow, and even how an action can completely fall apart. Now this is a perfect contrast. Swiftly means doing something quick and efficiently. For example, the firefighters responded swiftly to the emergency. The total opposite of that is languid, which means slow and totally lacking energy. You know that feeling on a really hot summer day when you're just too lazy to even move? That's a languid feeling.
And here we've got 2 different ways that an action can just fizzle out. To enervate someone means to completely drain their energy, to make them feel weak. A really long, boring lecture can enervate the entire class. And then to sputter is when something works in a weak, choppy way right before it stops completely. Think of a car engine that sputters before it dies. A failing project might sputter along for a bit before it's finally shut down.
Now, let's switch gears and talk about ideas. You can think of ideas kind of like plants. They start as a tiny seed, they grow, and then they spread everywhere. And guess what? Our next set of words follows that exact life cycle. We can break this down into 3 super simple steps. First, you have the beginning, when the idea is born. Second, you have the growth, when it gets bigger and stronger. And third, you have the spread, which is how it gets out to other people. Let's check out the words for each of these stages.
Okay, these 2, nascent and incipient, are very, very close in meaning, but there is a tiny difference. Both mean just beginning. Nascent usually highlights the potential for future growth, like a nascent tech industry that's about to explode. Incipient often points to the very first signs of something developing, which could be good or bad. You could have incipient rust on a car or an incipient headache just starting.
So once an idea exists, what do you do with it? You amplify it. This just means to make it bigger, stronger, more powerful. Companies use marketing to amplify their brand's message. A small protest can be amplified by news coverage to become a national conversation. It's all about turning up the volume.
Finally, ideas spread. Contagious means it spreads easily from person to person. And this can be a good thing, like contagious laughter, or a bad thing, like a contagious virus. Now, rampant also means spreading, but it's always negative and completely out of control. So you talk about rampant crime or rampant rumors, things that are spreading in a really harmful, unchecked way.
All right, moving on to our 4th group. This one is all about the big stuff. Power, making decisions, and putting plans together. These are words you'll see all the time in business or politics, so they're really good ones to know inside and out.
So an arbiter is basically a decider.
It's a person with the official power to settle an argument or make a final call. Think of a referee in a football match. They're the arbiter of the rules. A judge in a courtroom is a perfect example of an arbiter. They listen to both sides and then they make the decision that everyone has to follow.
When you're working with a plan, you need signals, and sometimes you need to make changes. A cue is just a signal to do something. An actor waits for their cue before they walk onto the stage. Now, to amend a plan means to change it, usually for the better. A government might amend a law to improve it, or a company could amend its return policy after getting customer feedback.
Now, sometimes plans have secrets, and sometimes, well, they just don't work. To divulge means to reveal secret information. A good friend won't divulge your secrets. And if a plan is impracticable, it means it's pretty much impossible to actually do. A plan to build a hotel on the moon is, well, it's impracticable with today's technology.
Okay, we're on the home stretch. Our fifth and final group is a bit of a mix, covering some tricky words about titles, money, and just seeing things clearly. They might not seem connected at first, but they all need you to pay close attention to the details, so let's break them down.
Okay, this is a fantastic comparison because these two words can be really confusing. Titular is used for a person who has a fancy title but no real power. For instance, the Queen of England is the titular head of state, but the Prime Minister actually runs the government. Now, nominal can also mean in name only, but you'll more often see it used to describe a tiny amount of money. For example, a lawyer might charge a nominal fee of $1 just to make a contract official.
These two financial terms are so important. Fiscal is all about government money. So fiscal policy is how the government decides to tax people and spend money. Monetary, on the other hand, is about a country's entire money system. Monetary policy is about managing interest rates and how much money is out there. Here's an easy way to remember. Fiscal has to do with the government's wallet. Monetary is about the country's money as a whole.
All right, get ready for this one. This is probably one of the most common mix-ups in the entire English language. These two words sound exactly the same, but they have totally different meanings and spellings. This is a classic exam trap. So, do you know which is which?
Here is a super simple trick so you never ever get this wrong again. Stationary with an A means at rest or not moving. Just think of a parked car. It is stationary. The other one, stationary with an E, is all the stuff you use for writing, like pens and envelopes. So just remember, A for at rest and E for envelopes. Easy!
And for our last two words today, first up, legible. That's L-E-G-I-B-L-E. Legible simply means that something is clear enough to read. Your handwriting on your exam paper must be legible. The opposite, of course, is illegible. And our final word is divergence, D-I-V-E-R-G-E-N-C-E. This is when two things start to move apart or go in different directions. For example, you might see a divergence of opinion between two political parties on an issue.
And there you have it. That's our 25 words. We've broken them down into groups to make them easier to remember, from qualities and actions to how an idea comes to life. So, as you look at this question, ask yourself, how are you going to take your incipient mastery, your new beginning, and amplify it into real confidence for your exam?